Rainier was a simple gardener in a quiet hillside village. Each morning, before the sun rose, she would walk barefoot through the rows of slender saplings and fragrant vines she had planted with her own hands. The cool soil beneath her feet, the dew that kissed the petals, the soft hum of insects waking with the dawn, it was more than a routine. It was her way of praying, of staying connected to life. Her garden wasn't grand. There were no marble fountains or expensive roses, but it was alive, filled with wild jasmine, lemongrass, citrus trees, mint beds, and sunflowers that followed the light like curious children. Rainier tended to each plant like it was her own child. She sang to them, whispered wishes into the soil, and celebrated every new bud like a small miracle. But life, like the weather, does not always stay gentle. 4 years ago, a storm struck sudden, violent, and unkind. It tore through the valley like a beast, the sky darkened without warning, winds howled like wolves, trees were uprooted, roofs flew like paper, the rain came sideways, hammering the earth. Rainier's garden, once full of life, was ripped apart in a single night. By morning, the beauty she had spent years building was gone. Groves of citrus trees lay broken. Lavender beds were washed away. Her greenhouse, which once held delicate orchids, had collapsed inwards like a broken promise. It looked like the garden had never existed. Only mud, twisted roots, and silence remained. The village mourned its loss. There's no saving it. People said, the land is ruined. Most gave up. They focused on rebuilding their homes and finding new ways to survive. But Rainier, she did not walk away. She gathered broken branches, not as trash but as lessons. She carried water uphill, stone by stone. She planted seeds in dry, cracked earth and whispered to them, just as she always had. Her neighbors looked at her with pity. "Why waste your strength, Rainier?" they asked. "The storms will return." She only smiled and said softly, "Every garden begins with a seed, a dream, and a heart willing to heal." She worked from dawn till night. Slowly, painfully, the earth began to respond. The first sprout came like a whisper, then another. The jasmine crept back along the fences. Sunflowers peeked out again, cautious but brave. Bees returned. Butterflies fluttered once more. Months passed. The garden didn't just return, it transformed. The roots grew deeper. The trees stood taller. The soil, once washed away, held stronger than before. People began stopping by, first out of curiosity, then out of awe. Some planted small pots by their windows. Others started vegetable patches behind their homes. Children brought broken cans and painted them into planters. Then a warning came. A second storm, bigger, louder, angrier, was forming far off the coast. The government sent warnings, news stations shouted emergency alerts. The villagers panicked, many packed and left. Others stayed inside, boarding up their homes, praying the storm would spare them. And Rainier, she walked into her garden with a lantern in one hand and a shovel in the other. Through the cold wind, she tied vines tighter to trellises. She layered the soil with leaves and sand to hold moisture. She dug channels to redirect water, packed bags of sand near flower beds, and gently moved the orchids back into protective corners. "Hold on," she whispered to the plants. "We've come too far." As midnight fell, the storm hit. It was loud, it was violent. Thunder cracked like mountains splitting. Trees bent under the wind's pressure, glass shattered, the greenhouse trembled. But Rainier stayed inside, wrapped in a blanket, eyes closed, praying not just for the garden, but for the strength to rebuild if needed. When morning came, the clouds parted slowly. The sky cleared, revealing the aftermath. Rainier stepped outside, her heart heavy. But what she saw made her stop in her tracks. The garden was still there. Yes, some branches were broken, leaves lay scattered, a few pots had rolled away, but the roots had held, the soil had stayed, the plants, though shaken, stood tall. Tears welled in Rainier's eyes. not of sadness, but of deep, overwhelming gratitude. Soon the villagers returned. They were surprised to see the garden alive. "You stayed?" one woman asked. "I stayed," Rainier said with a gentle nod. They watched her bend down and plant a new seedling even among the mess. Inspired, one by one, they joined her. Hands dug into the soil, fences were fixed. Broken branches became supports. Someone brought fresh seeds. Another brought paint for the garden wall. Within weeks, the garden not only healed, it bloomed more beautifully than ever. A journalist heard of the story and came to visit. She found Rainier in the greenhouse, holding a tiny orchid. "You stayed behind when others ran," the journalist said. "Weren't you afraid?" Rainier smiled. Dirt smudged her cheeks. "Of course I was," she said. "But a garden doesn't fear the storm. It accepts it, survives it, and begins again." She looked at the orchid, fragile and full of promise, and said, "We are like gardens. Life will break us, test us, drown us. But healing is always possible. And when we rise again, we carry the strength of every storm we've survived. Every new seed we plant is a quiet promise that we are still here and still growing. This teaches us in life's greatest storms, you can be uprooted. But with courage and care, you can rebuild stronger than before."